Hey, everybody. Welcome to Truth Teller Tales. I'm Ellen, and I am dedicated to interviewing those truth seekers who became truth tellers during this most incredible time to be alive. I mean, it's one of a kind time to be alive. And I do feel like these folks are going to be studied for generations. I have someone today. Oh, am I excited? He's a veteran, he's a constitutional lawyer, he is a warrior on pretty much every level that you could think of, and I can't wait to talk to him and hear his story. Ivan Raiklin, wow. Yay! How are you?
Hey, what's going on, Ellen?
This is just
Ready to
so
tell some
cool.
truth tales?
Yes, I am. And I was able to get you this when you during the parade and when I ran into you last weekend at the Veterans Dinner for General Flynn, and you were so kind, and the fact that you replied to me. Thank you so much. What a wonderful man you are with everything you've got going on. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. I like doing high IQ, long form interviews. And so
Yay.
this is one of them. I
Yay.
appreciate
Thank
you.
you so much. So I want to hear about your life, but before we do, because I want to lead up to it and hear everything. But before we do, just for people that aren't familiar with you, what is tell me your battle right now as to what you're focusing on right now.
I think the hardest nut to crack right now in this administration is accountability, and specifically accountability for the COVID crimes that both political party leadership were involved in.
Mhm.
Considering
And
that
so
this White House is now this White House has betrayed America at this point, having invited Albert Bourla into the White House, having invited Mark Zuckerberg into the White House, Bill Gates, Al Qaeda terrorist into the White House, endorsing Democrat COVID criminal Andrew Cuomo to be the mayor of New York. And
Mhm.
so, I mean, it's painful to say that, but you can't deny it. I mean, it's
Mhm.
the evidence is 100% clear what is going on. And I think most people that voted, I mean, I voted 6 times for this guy, 3 in the primary, 3 in the general. But the truth is the truth, right? And so
Mhm.
people need to start saying what they see. See something, say something, and then hopefully impact change for the better.
Absolutely, and, and I think they're warriors on all that are coming from all different if different areas. S I in my little world as a female in Virginia, see things differently, and I know, you do such good work for General Flynn, obviously, and he sees things differently as well, and we're all in this fog of war, but we're coming at it in different angles, and that's what we're supposed to be doing, and we're supposed to be understanding and holding people accountable, but also understanding, there's operations going on that that we're don't know because of this fog of war, and it's just it
I mean, I,
regardless,
I, I would
it's
disagree. I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm not aware of things going on. I just know the system well enough. I think after
yeah,
spending 25 years in it and
yeah,
knowing the individuals, the culture, and the
yes,
capabilities of different office holders and where
yeah,
their loyalties are. And I have tools and a network of essentially human intelligence that can give me live insight on every
mhm,
move being made from the White
yeah,
House to the DOJ to the Bureau to the Congress. It would be extremely hard for somebody to be doing something without me being aware of it.
well, that is wild, and I
I have
understand.
sources everywhere across
I
all
I
camps.
I absolutely bet you do, and also, you're just so on the ground with so many things to your point. It's hard not to feel, um, even with your caliber of everything that you're involved in with the military and all that you're doing, to understand the layers of deception that you see all around you, obviously, probably for years and years and years. You're just surrounded by it, and that and to me, that's devastating that we're in this position, but in my naivety, maybe, Ivan, I do feel like, this greater good, is gonna get us out of this, I but with that being said, because of all that you know and all that you're privy to, because of your history of who you are as a human being, I wanna hear that story. I wanna hear you as a kid. I wanna hear kinda where you were born, what your family was like. This this channel is just to really understand what made you the warrior you are today. So tell us about your life as a kid.
Yeah, I mean, I was just a normal kid. Let's see, I was born in the Bronx to
Oh,
parents that were immigrants. They emigrated from
wow.
the Soviet Union. They fled the Soviet Union and communism because they were being about to be persecuted. And so that was in the 70s. I was born in 76 as a bicentennial baby on February 29th, leap day.
Oh, wow.
And until I was 4, I was in New York City. We lived in northern part of Manhattan. I mean, looking back, it was pretty humble beginnings. I remember we had to our first TV we had to get from the so on the street side. I don't think I've ever told this story, but if you go out in the street, you have to dump your garbage, right? And so we had
Mhm.
to our first television, black and white. I think it was. We had to get it from the dumpster because my parents they were recent immigrants and uh, they didn't have much, right? So the
Mhm.
apartment was subsidized. It was a stipend based on their status as new immigrants under the Jackson-Vanik Amendment, which allowed for Soviet Jews to flee the Soviet Union. And so while my father was agnostic, his mother was Jewish, and so that basically allowed him to flee the Soviet Union. My mother, Eastern Orthodox Christian. And so I grew up
Mhm.
in that environment and I mean no complaints, just keep
Mm.
improving the position that you're in. And my father ended up started learning English from scratch. Then his degree from the Soviet Union was in accounting. And so he was a accountant for a little local store, grocery store. And then from there, he then went and applied for a PhD program in economics. He started off at Columbia University, pretty prominent university, obviously in New York, but ended up
Right.
finishing up at the New School for Social Research because they gave him a full ride scholarship there. And
Wow.
as that was going on, he moved us up to. He worked full time, went to school full time, so he was busy, not much at home. So my mom pretty much raised us. And then when I turned 6 is when we moved to upstate New York in the Catskill Mountains, not too far away from where Mike Tyson grew up and trained, right?
Oh, wow.
So that would have been the Catskill Mountains, about 2 hours north of the city. And I was there until I was 10 in Grahamsville, New York, Sullivan County. And then from there, my father finished his PhD because he would Monday through Friday he would spend in New York attending school and working full time. And then we would see him on the weekends where he would teach us on Saturday mornings. I remember he would be home, after a long week and make sure that we learned Russian language at home.
Oh, yeah.
Just to have
Yeah.
something to leave as his legacy, right? And so we did that. And then on Sunday evening, he would go back, right, to the city. But during that period of time, he got us a place up in the Catskill Mountains. It was a nice, very small rural area. So there, I was able to. We caught fish by hand at the local creek. Mess around with tadpoles, frogs, just kind of rural living, if you will.
Yeah.
And then when I turned
Ivan,
about 10, uh-huh.
yeah. I was just gonna say that's such a huge that is going from city life to the ultimate in nature life. Was that a big shock for you during that time as a youngster?
I mean, I don't know if it was a shock, but I remember going to was like kindergarten, and and then I think the first half of my first grade at a public school 98, I remember, PS 98 in New York City.
Aw.
And so you go from there to getting picked up by a, instead of walking to school, you're getting picked up by a bus to go to the local school, which is I went to Tri Valley. So if anybody wants to look up my
Aw.
background, if I'm in the
Yeah.
yearbook, Tri Valley Elementary School in Sullivan
Cool.
County. Yeah, this is I think this is my debut of speaking about this stuff publicly. So some
Love it.
people hear some personal anecdotes about mine that you've never heard before. So from
Excellent.
there, I was at 6'10". We moved to my father finished his PhD, and my mom was raising us, obviously, because he was busy. And we moved to Cedar Falls, Iowa, because that's where he got a
Wow.
teaching position as a professor of economics at the University of
Wow.
Northern Iowa, home of the Panthers,
Wow. Wow. That
purple
is
and
wild.
gold. So I lived in Cedar Falls, Iowa from what, 86, I guess, to 2000. And during that period of time, was it elementary, Orchard Hill Elementary School? Shout out to my Orchard Hill peeps. And then in junior high, I attended Pete Junior High School. And we moved a couple times while we lived in Cedar Falls, Iowa, just different houses. And then I went to Cedar Falls High School, did a little
Mhm.
wrestling, wrestled in high school. And then from there, I applied for a study abroad program. And then after my, in the middle of my senior year, I graduated early and then went on a program it's called American Council for Teachers of Russian. And then I did a semester abroad before I started college at Iowa State. Actually, wait, when was that? Yeah. So then I went to Iowa State University for the summer because my grades weren't
Mhm.
high enough in high school. So I had to go through probation. And then I ended up transferring over to back to Cedar Falls, Iowa, and attended University of Northern Iowa.
Oh,
So that pretty
wow.
much covers that period of time. And towards the end, I ended up joining ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Corps, and then did what's called the simultaneous membership program, where I served in the Iowa National Guard in Waterloo, Iowa, with the first of the 133 Infantry Battalion. It's the red part
Wow.
of the Red Bull Division. And I did ROTC, did basic. I did one of the summers I did basic and advanced in individual training in infantry in Fort Benning, Georgia in 1998. And then
Oh,
came back
wow.
and joined ROTC for the last 2 years and then got my commission. And then I embarked upon my National Guard Reserve, well, I should say National Guard active and reserve journey for the next 25 years. And then when I wasn't on active status in that period of time, I picked up a law degree. I did some consulting. I did some active duty time, and amidst all of that, essentially, I ended up becoming a lieutenant colonel in the reserves, and then I taught intelligence subjects at the Defense Intelligence Agency. My last kind of assignment, and as a contractor, and then as a reservist, as a technology scout in Silicon Valley. And in
There's
that period of time, I was able to do some missions, countering ISIS, Taliban, MS-13, Russian aggression, was a military attaché, intelligence officer, Green Beret, and
yeah.
analyst. I
Yeah.
kind of
There's
had a pretty good run.
yeah, no kidding. There's
Picked up a few
so
languages along the way other than Russian, a little bit of
yeah.
Arabic, Spanish, a little bit of French. Oh, during my college time in Cedar Falls, Iowa, and graduate work, I actually studied in, where was that? Mexico, Spain, and then also did some short stints, whether as a civilian or as a military service member in Latin America. So I spent time in Afghanistan, Jordan, the Republic of Georgia, El Salvador, Honduras, Bolivia, Guatemala, Ecuador. I think that's about
So
it.
to me, that is wild, Ivan. That's actually wild. You have immigrant parents. First of all, for your dad to go from being an accountant in a little grocery store in the Bronx, New York, and then being able to work his way up to a PhD, Columbia University. I mean, that's pretty wild. And that's very rare. And so he did that, but obviously he wasn't around very much for you as a kid. So, where did you end up getting your, guidance from? The did was it through sports in school? And what led you to ROTC? I mean, where did you get your male guidance during the time when he was, working and getting his degrees?
I guess it's a deep fundamental question that I should probably think through and do further psychological analysis on. But my guess is that the time that he was there, he was very disciplined in his own life. And so, even though he wasn't around, I guess you could observe his work ethic, right? And
Mhm.
so you knew that he was constantly busy, his full-time job, full-time student, and then still on the weekends trying to do his best, based on what he knew
Mhm.
as somebody that, by the way, his background, he survived what's called the 900-day blockade by the German Nazis of Leningrad in
Oh.
Leningrad, Russia, Soviet Union. So there was a blockade during World War II, and most people did not survive that. It was almost 3 years essentially, and there was a time where everybody was giving out rations of about one slice of bread a day to survive off of. And so he was one of the folks that survived that. And he was a small guy, probably 5'4", 5'3".
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, so he did what he could based on his stature, and he had asthma. So I don't know. To get back to your question, he made the most of what he could based on what he could control within his own
Yep.
domain. And I think I saw that, and probably some of that rubbed off on me. And as
Mhm.
far as I know some people say that I have decent interpersonal skills. Others say that I don't. But for those that say that I do, I would say that that's probably from my mother. She's more compassionate, and obviously most moms are. And
Yep.
from a traditional family, I was given that love and care and supervision from mom, even though she kind of let us roam. But when dad came in, the disciplinarian, we would act like we're following all the rules and guidelines. And so
Yeah. Yeah,
I guess the work
exactly.
ethic, again, bottom line, the work ethic from him and also from my mom, because there was 4 of us. So I had 3 siblings. So she had a
Okay.
lot to manage
Yeah.
and with very limited resources, and she made it work.
And so
Yep.
did your other siblings also were they I mean, because you obviously set some high goals for yourself and,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
I
that's
guess they
probably the other component. I was the youngest in the family, and so
Oh,
I guess probably I have a little survivor's streak because the my sisters, especially my second sister, I have, 2 sisters and a brother. She would just torment me and beat me up, but I wouldn't take it. I mean, my older sister would say that she would just torment me. I'm like, "I don't remember that." All I remember is when I had to beat her up, like, to a pulp one time. She's, like, 6 years older than me, and then once I did that, then that torment kinda stopped, and so I had to fend for myself because everyone, was busy. Mom was either, the traditional lifestyle of a homemaker, cooking,
yep.
cleaning, managing the home, which is it's a full-time job when you have 4 young ones that you have to
Yes.
deal with, and it's all
Yes.
chaos. And so, yeah, I guess, I learned and observed from my siblings. That's probably an advantage
Mhm.
that, one-child homes don't have, because I was able to observe those, 3 years older than me, 6 years older than me, 7 years older than me, and that's a big age difference when you're
Mhm.
3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years old. You already have pretty much adults, even though you're 10 years old, that you're looking up to, or maybe not
Right.
looking up to, but observing their
Yes.
behavior that helps shape your decision making process. And the parenting wasn't as hovering, right? By the time the
Right.
fourth kid rolls around, the parents are like, yeah, whatever. So there's some of that freedom to operate on your own. And that
Mhm.
maybe, I guess that freedom and lack of supervision to some regards later on, coupled with the discipline observed from my father and mother, is probably what shapes me even to this day, because I like the freedom of maneuver and complete independence to be able to kind of do and say what I see as the truth. And it goes to
Mhm.
kind of the title of your show,
Mhm.
because a lot of people, the things that I put out recently, it's just, you can't not see it and you cannot say it. It is so abundantly clear what's going on. And that's why you're seeing essentially this slight civil war within our base going on, of prioritization of, do we kowtow to the donor class, or do we represent the values of our communities, right? And
Mhm.
so that's the friction that you're seeing within those that voted for Donald Trump base.
Mhm.
And I think you know what I'm referring to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so
I
and
mean,
I
on one
and
side,
we
you have Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin telling me who I should pay attention to and listen to. That's the fastest path for me to now pay attention to the person that you're telling me I can't pay attention to. Okay. The fastest path to elevating someone is to tell me and try to censor me. Okay. That will motivate me more than anything else in life, because I take my First Amendment very seriously. And now I get it. You're a private citizen, but the ethos of, I don't tell other people who they should communicate with and who they should not communicate with. Well, I mean, obviously, if it's my kids, then I have the responsibility for that. But short of that, I will give data and input to other grown men and women on, hey, I know a little bit about this other individual. This is what they've done to me in our relationship. Factor that in when you're dealing with this individual. I'm not going to limit you or try to limit you from interacting with them. I'm just going to give you data points. That's probably a more appropriate way to deal with people. But if you're going to go all out and try to cancel someone else after we just spent 4 years trying to stop the censorship and cancellation, you're a problem of mine now. And I don't care how you vote. Okay.
right,
That's a
right.
problem. And so we went on
Yes.
a slight tangent and I'm getting warmed up, but I
That's
think
okay,
I think you
I
got me to the point where, my background personally, and then
and I
essentially
want
I got two kids, two teenagers,
well,
and
before we get
that's
bef
essentially my focus,
well, and I
is to
that's
set the
amazing, and
example for them.
absolutely, without a doubt, and I think that's our most important role in our
Right.
stories as human
And
beings that we're here,
and I consider cowards to be worse than traitors. So if you're a coward, I am going to confront that with more zeal than I will a traitor. And people are like, what do you mean by that? Well, because a traitor actually has courage to be able to destroy their own community and society. Okay. They have that, whatever you want to call it. A coward is just going to sit there and receive and do nothing about it. Okay. To me, that's
Right.
disgusting. There are many more cowards out there that need to be addressed than there are traitors. And so once we get the cowards
Yes.
in order, there will be no treason. Okay. There will be no traitors.
Right. And, I mean, you're dealing with people on such a different level than the average person, and there are people who aren't brave in everyday life. You're on a high level, but there are people who aren't brave, who weren't brave during this pandemic that we went through, who were afraid to stand up and
Yeah.
and
Most
and
of the
just
current
just in it
government is still jabbed.
and yes, in
My litmus
everyday
test,
life.
if you are jabbed, you have no business being in my government. Zero.
Yeah.
You need to be
And so
cleansed out of the system.
And that's what's setting people apart right now in with the time with which we are living. And that's why I want to interview people like you, because you know I psychologically people like you will be studied, I believe, for generations, because
like a lab
as to
rat.
why you are a warrior. No, but you know what I mean? Why you are the warrior that you are, and there are warriors around the world who are willing to stand up, and why you are the way you are. And so it will be documented and it will be studied, and that's why I wanted to put these shows together to just learn about you, each of you, so that when they study and understand what made you the warrior that you are today, and that sword comes out. I can see it just with you talking. My sword comes out in a different way. When I'm protecting my children or also my country in a different way than you are, but we all have that. And so it to me it's fascinating to hear who each of you are as you were growing up. And so I wanted just to go back a little bit because it was just so fascinating to me. So you went from upstate New York to Iowa. That's also a really big trip. And whether you go by car with four siblings in the back seat,
Yeah, it
I
was
don't
via
know
car on
if
Highway 80 the whole way.
yeah, and then
In a
end up in
truck.
this new world, and you live in a new place in the new area to explore, and life is more simple then because 'cause you're a kid. How was that? Were you able to enjoy the change? Did you dread the change? I mean, how was that whole time when you were a kid?
Uh, it was I enjoyed it. I mean, I think my older sisters didn't enjoy it as much because growing up, because they were born in the Soviet Union. We actually grew up speaking Russian at home, and
Mhm.
they came when they were 5, 6, respectively. My brother was like 10 months old when he came over to the US, and I was born later. So I was the first one born in the United States.
Oh, wow.
And I remember them always getting picked on, calling, "Hey, commies, commies this, commies that." And they don't know, like, right? They don't
Right.
know what that is when you're what, 8, 10 years old.
Yeah,
But remember, this was the 80s, so the big red scare, the commie, right? This
right.
was during the
Yeah.
height of Reagan. And that stuff didn't bother me. I don't know. I guess things when people picked on me, I just basically responded 11 times the norm. And so when you do it that way, people don't really continue their picking on you, right?
Yeah.
Whereas they would feel sad and come home like, "Oh, dad, mom, they're calling me commies." I'm like, "Well, just stand up for yourself." Meanwhile, I'm like, what,
Mhm.
4 years older or whatever it was. It's like, don't mess with my not 4, but like, what was it? In upstate New York, I would have been 7. Yeah, 7 is when that was going on especially on the bus. And I
Oh,
was
yeah, I
always
bet.
ready, willing, and able to fight. I don't care how big somebody was. You're doing the
Yeah.
wrong thing. I'm just gonna put out the maximum output that I can put out based on my capability and size, and then we'll see where the chips fall. And the chips always land in, you know, like I'll never be bullied. Okay, I don't care how powerful and
Mhm.
strong you are. I guess that's kind of my life experience. I'm not gonna pick on anybody, but once you start to attempt to bully me or somebody that is not in a position to push back, I want to
Right.
be the first one in the breach to give that individual or group, whatever, a lesson. Okay. A lesson for the rest of their life. And so I
Mhm.
guess I've taken that and, 25 years, like I said, in the national security ecosystem and intelligence and special operations, diplomacy. I have a pretty eclectic background that has prepared me for really any endeavor. And considering knowing what occurred to my parents when they were in the Soviet Union, while they were silenced, they were persecuted.
Right.
After I saw what happened in the 2020 illegitimate election,
Mhm.
I mean, it was game on. And
Yep.
then the weaponization started. One of the interviews that I just did yesterday, I'm not sure if it's aired yet. It'll come out later, maybe today. On, have you heard of Redacted News? It's a big Rumble
Of
channel.
course.
Clayton
Yes.
Morris.
Of
So I
course.
did an
Yes.
interview, and he actually introduced me fairly well. I'm actually the most investigated individual by the Biden criminal syndicate easily because I never bent a knee on anything. And I know that sounds like a bold statement, but when you go down through it and I provide receipts, not only did Jack Smith send 4 subpoenas on me, but before
Mhm.
that, there was at least 3 subpoenas that I have evidence of. And I have evidence that the Department of Defense, across over a half a dozen investigations, because I was a reservist, remember? And I
Mhm.
was in the intelligence community as an instructor. So the intel community was investigating me across not only at the highest levels of the Defense Intelligence Agency with the director, the Biden's director there, the IC, the ODNI, the DHS placed me on that Quiet Skies program that Tulsi was on, where they conduct the Fourth Amendment, what I call gang rape. And then so DOD, DOJ, DHS, almost 2 dozen investigations that I know of. So Donald Trump wasn't investigated by the DOD; he was investigated by the DOJ. Okay, and others may have been investigated by the DOJ and the DOD in some regards. One individual, the guy that confronted John Brennan, remember that a couple weeks ago?
Mhm.
Did you see that video that came out where he confronted him at a
I
conference?
no,
Gentleman's name
I
is
did not
Tom
see the
Speciale. So he was investigated for being accused for January 6th matters. So I was investigated for January 6th, for never bending a knee on the COVID, never never being duped into consuming the unsafe and ineffective products, right? So they didn't get me on anything. So I'm undefeated. So while I was investigated the most, I'm also undefeated. And unfortunately, right now, the deputy attorney general in our Department of Justice is winless. So he didn't win
Mhm.
a single case that he tried in defending candidate Trump again at the time, and whoever else he was basically defending, which begs the question, right? Like, why are we installing winless, vaxed bureaucrats in this administration? Okay.
Mhm.
Well, I think everybody knows the answer to that. It's because the president is also promoting the jab. He's also promoting boosters. He's also promoting the CEO of the largest DNA mutilation injection product known to man, Albert Bourla, the CEO of Pfizer, into the White House. And then he's lauding the guy that spent $400 million in bribing election officials to steal the 2020 election. I'm talking about Mark Zuckerberg, and colluded with the Biden criminal syndicate in order to censor and coerce people into taking the jab, into buying into the illegal election, into buying into Nancy Pelosi's insurrection narrative, as opposed to the
Mhm.
Fedsurrection. And so I mean, I hate to say it. I call balls and strikes, and I don't care who
Mhm.
you are. And people are like, oh man, you got to check your ego. You got to do this and that. Hey, I like transparency. Maybe I should just start saying that, you know what? I have the biggest ego of ever anybody in the history of humanity. Or I can say, I'm the most humble human ever to walk the face of the earth. It doesn't matter like how I impact other person's feelings. The truth is the truth. And if I'm wrong, I immediately correct it.
Mhm.
But the
That's
thing is, I have an advantage being a lawyer and working through that analytic process to convey information. And I also have the luxury of being a professional intelligence analyst that used to teach intelligence analysis. And those two
yeah.
things, coupled with my tactical, operational, strategic background, I'm in a very unique position of understanding the ecosystems, the most powerful ecosystems in America, here in DC, in big tech in
Mhm.
Silicon Valley, based on my last assignment that I had as a tech scout, and with the experience that I just mentioned, and the relationships that come with it of individuals
Mhm.
in both of those ecosystems.
Right.
So basically, I can call bullshit when it actually happens immediately.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And so I have
And I
some.
don't care about hiding, beating around the bush and calling
No,
it
I could
out.
tell that. I could tell that. So I have a couple questions, but before I do that, you spent the weekend with General Flynn, who obviously I admire very, very, very much. Do you do you get to ever have a conversation with him about these
General
things?
Flynn is right now, I would say the one of maybe the only American that understands where we're at historically when we look at the 250-year arc in America, and he's in a position to course correct. Because
Mhm,
right now, I mean, there are some people that can somewhat course correct in this administration. I'm not, I mean, there are a lot of positives to this administration. Don't get me wrong,
mhm,
massive, a trillion times better than Kamala Harris, if not more.
mhm,
Okay.
mhm,
But we always have to strive for better, right? Ideally, we
mhm,
strive for perfection and we keep trying to attain it. So General Flynn, as far as I'm concerned, is going to go down as the most consequential general since George Washington. And depending on how things play out, he's probably going to go down as the most consequential figure uh, easily in our generation.
mhm,
I think he already has kind of proven himself by
mhm,
he's another undefeated individual
mhm.
because while the entire government went after him, the entire government went after him. Both
Right.
political parties went after him at the highest levels, undefeated.
Yep.
He was never lawfully charged with a crime and he was never convicted of a crime, but yet the system manipulated itself in order to make it look like he had to get a pardon for a non-charge, non-conviction. I don't know if you
Mhm.
saw the movie Deliver the Truth, whatever the cost. Have you seen
No,
that? That's General
no.
Flynn's documentary movie, and it lays it out pretty specifically in detail. Everybody that went after General Flynn are the same people that went after President Trump. The reason why
Yeah,
they went after General Flynn first is because he knew the system and he was in a position to expose it all. Whereas Donald
right,
Trump really had no understanding of the system. So it was easy to dupe, coerce, manipulate, distract, divert, right? In order for
right.
them to continue to run roughshod and essentially protect themselves the first 4 years. And we're seeing that this first year again. So we're 5 years in almost and not a single arrest. Not
Right.
one,
Mhm.
because the same people are still in place. Because you have
Yes.
vaxxed cowards heading up the accountability organizations. Dan
Yeah.
Bongino,
Oh,
right? Got the
I
vax.
I hear you, but I wanna because of this and I hear you with everything, and you're at such a high level with all of your information and all that you do and all that you've created your life in all of your experience to be able to be who you are and what you're doing and what you know now, without a doubt. So with
By the
that
way,
being
when I
said
speak, it's this is me speaking. You can't attribute it
yeah.
to anybody else. I'm my own guy, all right? And when you
Oh,
ask me, do I talk to General Flynn? You got to ask him that question. I mean, you can guess, but that's something for him to answer. And
yeah.
yeah, and I am I'll say this. General Flynn is much more professional and diplomatic than I am, and I respect
Yeah.
that about him. I am
Yes, yes.
more rough around the edges and
Right.
sometimes not just the edges.
Yes. I hear you. And that but that's what makes you you, right? And so but I'm always I'm really curious because I'm not at that high level. I'm just curious I'm also about your life. And so how does this kid who goes from New York to Iowa basically want to then go into a field where you're traveling around the world, and you're putting yourself in dangerous situations, and where did that come from?
I think
uh
probably from
that
wrestling. So I started wrestling when I was probably in 7th grade, middle school, and just the competition of it, the fearlessness. I mean, we wrestling is pretty competitive in Iowa, arguably the
Yeah.
most competitive state place on the planet, right? And so when you're wrestling, you have to cut weight. There's a lot of discipline involved in wrestling because you're trying to cut as much weight as fast as possible to weigh in at the lightest that you can be I mean, this is at a time when I was maybe 4% body fat, wrestling at 112 pounds, and then 119 and 125 pounds in high school. As you know, a kid that's about 5'6" at the time. I'm 5'7" now, right? Or 5'5" at the
Mhm.
time. And so you have to eat, like, or not eat and not drink, and then exercise 2-3 hours a day. And in addition to that, I always like a challenge. And so I think the military disciplined me even further. And then from there, I just felt like I wanted to increase my challenge rate. So I went from infantry, and then I did special forces, and then I went to another, attempted to go into a special mission unit, got selected for that. But under the Biden criminal syndicate vice presidency, uh, he and Barry Hussein decided to diminish the amount of special forces officers that would be able to exist on active duty. So I wasn't able to perform in the capacity at that particular special mission unit. And so, yeah, I mean, I would say that I like a physical and mental challenge. And so that's when I
Right.
started studying. I don't know, you can call it compulsive, but I like to be the most physically fit and the most intellectually astute that I can be,
Mhm.
because when you have book smarts and street smarts,
Yep.
that's a very um, dangerous position for others to be when they're around me.
Yeah. Without a doubt. I couldn't agree with you more. And so with all that and your so
But I like
with
to
your
play nice with
drive and
everybody until they conduct treason, and that's when I have problems.
well, of course. And so but you have this
That's when they have
obviously this
problems with me.
huge yes. And but you've got this drive about you obviously that has pushed you um to be strong and be the best. What I have two questions. Do you ever get tired of dealing with all this? And then how do you kind of refill your cup at this point?
Yeah, do I get tired? Pause. That's why I sleep. I try to sleep my 8 hours a day. Do I get tired of, and this is not going to sound humble to those that sometimes say that they're victims of something, but for those that can never be victims, this message is for you. I'm kind of, it gets old and lonely when you're a year, 5 years, 11 years ahead of people
Mhm.
that profess breaking news, when I'm like, yeah, I mean, let me go back to 8 years ago when that was already broken by yours truly. And so it does get a little old and lonesome, if you will, because a lot of times people aren't ready to receive the information because it's too over their skis, right? So if you're dealing in an
Mhm.
ecosystem of information here and I inject something over here, you need to have those components before you're even willing to accept a hypothesis about what's going on here. Okay.
Right.
And so I find it that the reason why I'm on podcasts all the time, and I like to do long form podcasts, is it's essentially I'm teaching, right? At the end of the day. Yeah, I inject some entertainment in there and some passion. But at the end of the day, it's to get people's attention to wake up about what's going on around them and maybe motivate them to push back against the things that they also don't like, but that they didn't
Mhm.
know the problem or the root of it. Because a lot of times people will
Mhm.
focus on a problem that's not the right problem.
Right.
And then once you lay out what the actual problem is, then they can divert their attention and resources to try to help address it. So that's the first question that you said. I mean, do I get sick of it? I mean, no. I mean, I'm always positive. Like when I broke my leg, what was it? 2 years ago at this point, I thought it was
What?
great because I'd never been in the hospital for anything. So I get to experience the hospital. I get to experience
Wow.
surgery. I get to experience pain that I've never felt ever, and which allows me to be able to relate with others that have experienced this level of pain so I can help and maybe mentor them through their pain and commiserate
Mhm.
with them. So I think all experience allows you to look at it from a positive level. Now, if you're a half empty type of
Right,
perspective, then you're going to complain for the rest of your life that can't walk, can't run as like I used to, can't do, this and that. You can just focus on the
right.
negative as
Yep,
opposed to, no, I mean, I just proved up that I have a threshold of pain that it's great. It tests your threshold of pain. And when you look at it from that perspective, I can now basically say, hey, when these jokers at the FBI come knocking at my door to try to force a unsafe and ineffective product into my kids or myself, at a minimum, one of us is not coming out alive. At a minimum. And I'm willing to break some of my bones as part of that process. And I'll be glad to go back to the hospital. And I would be happy to see a jury of my peers as they sort
yeah,
out what I just did to those that tried to violate my rights.
absolutely. So, Ivan,
Come
the
test it.
warrior
Come try it. I mean, I welcome you trying to violate my rights. But that is your option, government.
yes,
Not all of
yes.
government, but some loose cannons, vigilantes.
So the warrior that you are, basically, how and maybe now if with you have kids, obviously, how do you just refill your cup, just to get your mind off of
Yeah, so
the
how do I refill my cup? I sleep and then I try to eat as healthy as I can and then I also exercise. Outdoor
Mhm,
cardio, get off the screens
mhm,
and yeah, study, read. I mean, I don't usually read at this point. I listen because I'm able to consume
mhm.
content much faster that way because you're exercising and listening, swimming,
That's right.
hiking, biking, spending time with the kids, mentoring,
Mhm,
doing projects at home. I mean, at the end of the day, what you see me doing, people are going to be surprised, but it's a hobby. I mean, it's not my full time thing. Everything you see me do, it's a hobby for me to fight tyranny. Okay. Now, sometimes I spend a little bit more time than other days, but at the end of the day, it's just a passion hobby. And I don't like it when our government crushes the small guy, right? Illegally. And so, I mean,
mhm.
my background, I mean, think about it. I laid out my background. If somebody like me is not going to step up to the plate and start swinging grand slams against tyranny, I mean, who will? Like
Right.
it would be embarrassing for me not to like if I wasn't doing this, I would be embarrassed with myself for letting this happen the last 4 years and not trying to fight it. So at the end of the day, most people did. They just sat back and
Right.
took it. And so they should be
Right.
embarrassed with themselves. Just completely pathetic loser cowards. And a lot of them were I considered friends,
Mhm,
peers that have similar backgrounds to mine. Just pathetic. And some of them like, send me angry messages, lose my number. I'm like, good. About time, because that's how I feel.
mhm,
And they can contact me when they grow some courage. But until then,
mhm.
like they have to do some soul searching and decide for themselves. Are they going to be happy with the legacy that they left their children of? Hey, guess what, son, daughter? I was a straight up coward during the COVID lockdowns. I complied with everything and I was a good little Nazi. I just let them do it all. And I even proudly wore the badge of several boosters. Now, you can be scum like that and still survive as a citizen. You have no business in my government. Zero. Because you're not a critical thinker. You didn't prove up. And you need to be eradicated out of the government and
Mhm.
go be a coward in the civilian world.
Right. Yes. And but the government was always a place to hide before, but who you are is the road less traveled, right? That's why it's the road less traveled, because there's very few of people like you who have that, and you're in the middle of that swamp. I mean, it's thick
I
and
got the
it's
enemy
dirty.
right where I want them, Ellen. 360
Yeah.
degrees around me. I can't miss.
Yeah. That's for
It's
sure.
like
That is for
batting
sure.
1,000 over here. I look one way, I was like, oh, look at this congressman or this staffer. Confront them daily. Yesterday, I had a nice little walk around the Washington field office of the FBI. I did a little live stream for about an hour. I don't know if you caught. Did you catch that?
I didn't see that yet.
I went trick or treating there on October 31st as we gave a little trick to Mr. Jeremy Desor, one of the agents that was on the Jack Smith illegal probe against me and a few hundred of my closest friends. But here's the problem. The people that we have right now in the system have squandered a year because of their cowardice inaction. If they need
Mhm.
help, they just need to use an AI tool to go ahead and file these lawsuits. Eh, James Comey is still treasoning and still controlling Cash's FBI because I'm going to ask you this question, Ellen. How many people that are at the FBI headquarters and the Washington field office of the FBI that are still loyal to Chris Wray, James Comey, and their ilk? How many?
Mhm.
Would you say it's over
I have no
50%? Because I'd say it's way over
probably.
50% because Cash has fired how many of them? A few dozen, maybe? Out of 20,000 or so?
Mhm.
What about at the DOJ? How many has Pam Bondi fired that are still loyal to Eric Holder, Sally Yates, Rod Rosenstein? Those involved
Mhm.
in 11 years of treason.
Yeah.
Probably 90%, 95% are still there.
Mhm. I mean, obviously, the swamp is deeper than
Yeah, and the
anybody
easiest way
can
to solve
imagine
this
it.
is to pull the database that they themselves created. Oh, you're
Mhm.
vaccinated? You're not showing up to work tomorrow. If you want to come back to work, you got to write a sworn affidavit explaining how you were duped and who within your leadership chain duped you into accepting the jab. And you're going to
Mhm.
also include all the links and information that you used to convince yourself that it was safe and effective. All social
Mhm.
media, all mainstream media, and all data points so that we can then criminalize both the chain of command and those media outlets that promoted the COVID
Mhm.
products,
Right.
the genocidal COVID products.
That's right. And so, Ivan, I
We
am
can't do
looking
that because we have a White House that making lots of money off of that as well. Sorry,
well,
go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm outside of that bubble, right? Looking in, but and everybody has their bubbles all over the place. But
Mhm,
looking at it outside of the bubble, just of our world. Everything obviously that's been happening to us is purposeful and it's been psychological warfare for us to be convinced that we're supposed to be following these certain rules and to get vaccinated and to 6 feet apart and to vote this way, to eat this, to drink that, to whatever it is. It's all been a psychological manipulation of humanity
mhm,
to keep us controlled and going in their direction, right? And so that's to me, not getting into the minutia that you're in, that's what fascinates me because with all of that psychology, why are do some people psychological manipulation? Do some people see through it and others the mass amount of people do not. And that's why I want to speak to people like you. You're unique. You definitely have a unique background with Russian immigrant parents and who you are too. But we've all been growing up in the United States of America, we've all been susceptible to the programming on television and the things that are the education and everything. Yet some of us can still walk out and see through it and others cannot. And that to me, in my bubble, is what is fascinating to try to understand and I believe will be studied for for a long time to come. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, some of it's part of upbringing and discernment, and at the end of the day, it's mostly cowardice. Most people just don't want friction. Okay, I I'm different, right? When you're given an option of fight or flight,
Hmm.
flight does not exist in my vocabulary. Like I have to fight, and when I
Right.
don't have a fight, then I seek one out because I want to see. Like again, this is my hobby, so initially, when they were coming out with the COVID products, I thought to myself, I'm going to wait a few months, see how many people die or injured from it or any adverse reactions, and then I'll make a decision if it's fairly safe and effective based on the evidence. But the moment that you started seeing everybody saying that they're, especially after the second shots people were getting, it's like, oh man, my arm or this, just basic things like that, too. Oh, I can't
Hmm.
hear anymore. I got tinnitus. I got all these different side effects from people that you talk to. It's like, yeah, maybe this is not so safe and effective. And I wonder what's in it. So then you start to research it. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, they're trying to force it on you. Guess what I said when we opened up the show? When you try to force me not to talk to someone, that is the fastest
Hmm.
way to reject you and take a look at what you're trying to force me to not look into. That's
Right.
immediate. And so then I became a subject matter expert on the pandemic, the COVID op, the COVID con, the origins of COVID, the 39 states that ran their elections due to COVID, which were illegal, unconstitutional, violated election law, violated the federal constitution, the January 6th Fedsurrection, the cover up to the Fedsurrection, and tying it all in together to the front row seat that I had back in 2014 when I served on the Ukraine crisis team in the Pentagon. And then it begs the question, oh, is that why the auto pen was pardoning all the way back to 2014? Because of what I witnessed the Biden criminal syndicate do when I was in the Pentagon, observing Brennan, Biden, Hunter doing their pay for play schemes with Victoria Newland. Yeah. And so now, I mean, as an analyst, I just lay it all out. And when I lay it
Right.
all out, people go from my almost certainty with the high level of confidence and say, oh, no, Ivan, it's 100%. I can't say with 100% unless you provide me their communications.
Hmm.
Then I can get you to 100%. But we
Hmm.
don't have energy or courage in this, at best, in this current DOJ, and in some instances, part of the White House and the FBI to go after these traitors.
Hmm.
So I'm here to motivate them to either get the courage or be replaced. And
Hmm.
if it's going to come a point in time where a future administration will consider those that are currently in their offices as accessories after the fact that will also face criminal liability for continuing the cover up.
So let me ask you a question. It's a
And then
little bit
this will be the
different.
last one.
Absolutely.
We're already at an hour. Yep.
So my question is, people outside of the bubble who are also warriors in their world, right? Um, have had a spiritual growth throughout their life. And some of them have had it happen suddenly. Others have just had more of this spirituality happen to them as they've grown in their life. Um, those people that can see past the psyop of what's happening. Has that happened to you in your life?
I would say so. I think it happened to a lot of people during COVID, or what
Mhm.
other people call COVID, but during the lockdowns, right?
Right.
So I'd like to, and you're talking about spiritual, religious, right?
And not necessarily a specific religion, just a more of a feeling of a greater good, of a
Yeah, so I mean,
spirituality of
I think the Bible has many citations and references that are applicable to today that I essentially live by. And I don't know if you're how well versed you are in the Bible. I mean, I'm always learning every day, everything that I do.
yeah,
And I'd say for me, the four big ones that have guided me these specifically these last 5 years is you're familiar with Isaiah 6:8, common one.
specifically tell me
So
that.
also I heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send and whom will go for us?" Then I said, "Here am
Mm,
I, send me." So I kind of
yes.
live by that because no one else really, very few people stood up during the whole op of 2020. And
Mhm,
then, well, sending to do what though? And I say that that's John 8:32, which is, "And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." So General Flynn's movie is called Deliver the Truth, Whatever the Cost. And
mhm,
even nowadays, I get a lot of pain come my way for delivering the truth. And it's painful because even people that are kind of ideologically aligned, some of the things that I just mentioned on your show, they have
mhm,
to come to grips with that's reality. I mean, that's truth. And they say, "Hey, you don't have to say it." Like no one else is saying it. So then it goes back to Isaiah 6:8. Like somebody has to say it. And when it's so clearly the elephant in a room is not being said because of money, access, whatever, well, somebody has to step over that barrier. And I guess
mhm.
it had to me. I mean, it has to be me a lot of times. And unfortunately, that's the case. So we continue. And then the next thing, you see what's right behind me?
Yep.
What does it say?
Department of Retribution.
Yeah, where's that come from? Do you think? Leviticus 24, chapter 24, verse 19, 20. If anyone injures his neighbor as he has done, it shall be done to him. Fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. Whatever injury he has given a person shall be given to him. Okay? When I say
Mhm,
retribution, a lot of people apply a negative connotation to it because they just don't want to go there because they're cowards. Okay?
mhm,
Or they're complicit and they don't want to face justice. All
mhm.
retribution is, when you look at the American Heritage Dictionary, is punishment for wrong committed. Translation: make crime, make crime. What is it? I think Elon Musk said it this way: make crime crime again, right? Like punish crime, punish criminals.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's all retribution is. It's you do the crime, you face the consequences, you do the time. But we don't have people in our institutions that are willing to do that. The criminals, when they're in office, will do anything and everything in their power to continue to perpetuate and continue the crime to keep themselves in power. I could care less about power and influence. What I do care about is if you take away my God given rights, my
Mhm,
constitutional uh, individual liberties, then guess what? I will personally provide you the retribution. Okay. And so far, I'm undefeated. Okay.
mhm,
And it's only going to escalate from there because I'm not going to wait on any government, whether it's the county, the state, or the federal government, to protect my family, to protect my neighbors. No. If you're in my vicinity and something is unlawfully going on in my vicinity, I'm not going to pick up the phone first. I'm going to neutralize the threat and then I'll consider who I contact next based on the situation that I've developed and created and had full control over based on another person's illegal actions.
mhm,
And if every single, I'm going to say it this way, because men usually have more physical capability than a woman.
mhm,
The men that are listening in, you better get yourself prepared to be able to be in that position. Because when you don't, people like me are going to see that. It's going to come out, it'll be public, and we're going to call you out as being absolute cowards and embarrass you for being the weak, cowardly scum that you've just shown yourself to be by not protecting those in your vicinity when you had the ability to stop that tyranny in the close proximity. Because guess what? I always will look forward to a jury of my peers when I'm placed in a position stopping tyranny. I'll take my chances every day. And if it requires a carcass to be left around me, the jury will sort it out and I'll be happy to face them.
Well,
Next
you
and last,
yes.
Luke
Yes.
17:2.
Excellent.
It were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck and he cast into the sea than that he should offend one of these little ones. Now I get it. There are different interpretations of this, but this one rings. This is how I deal with this passage. You touch my kids, the jury of my peers will immediately see me. Okay? That's it.
Mhm. Understood. I totally understand very, very much your interpretation of that for sure. And I appreciate you speaking of that and those passages, your passion obviously comes through and your conviction and who you are and being in the middle of all that, Ivan, and your life that led you to be where you are now, um, has given you that armor and the fearlessness to be able to speak how you feel you need to speak in truth. And whether people agree with you or not, it's admirable. And so I
Please.
thank you.
I want more people to disagree with me and then come with receipts and evidence debunking anything I say. Iron sharpens iron. Hey, Mark Levin. Hey, Ben Shapiro. Give me a reason why I should listen to you.
Right, right. Absolutely. Well, Ivan, I mean, thank you for being in that that swamp there and being able just to still
I got
and to
like a
being
toothpick sized straw, and every day I'm sucking the swamp.
exactly. Yeah, you are, but your
But I'm
wings
making
are still
progress.
out there. But I love it because with your wings behind you, I mean, they can't touch you, and so I love that. I
They
love that
can. I mean,
so much.
they can flick me like a booger if they want, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it turns out for them if they try that.
Well, I appreciate you so much and seeing in your environment in person, close to General Flynn, I know your conviction and your heart are in the right place, without a doubt. So thank you for your fight, for your armor, for for being there in the midst of all that. And we admire you and we'll keep fighting for you, Ivan.
I
Uh,
appreciate it. I mean,
for
if
your
we all
fight.
do our part, we won't have to deal with this like we did last time. You know?
Exactly. Yes. But
All right.
thank
Well,
you for
thank you.
being there and being in the
Yep.
fight.
All right.
Okay. Take care of yourself. Thank you. All
God
right.
bless.
Bye.